So would you say Jubilee has failed? That's why before the COVID, when we had the BBI campaigns, we have crowds of people.
I think we have to look at it much more broadly than that. There are some challenges, commitments that the Jubilee government made, and it's not able to fulfill them. For instance, maybe they wanted to build so many stadia within a short
6
time
months'
frame.
time.
They wanted to build so many dams and so forth. So they overcommitted. And in certain respects, their record of performance there is not good in some of these areas. But maybe there are others where they have made some strides. If you look at it in terms of some roads, you will admit that yes, they have done quite a number of roads. But ultimately you ask yourself, at what is the cost-benefit analysis of some of those projects? And what impact does it have on the taxpayer? These are questions that you ask at a different level. And each government has its priorities. So going forward, I want to tell you that the economy, a growing economy, must become a priority. We have lost foreign exchange on collapsed tourism. Our export earnings have declined. Our debt is higher. So unless we have a strategy around these things, you may have serious social unrest going forward.
And of course, with the many projects the government has been doing, mostly roads and maybe SGR and stuff around that, it means we've borrowed so much money.
Mm-hmm.
As of January, we had a debt of 7 trillion. Does that bother you, and what does that mean for the economy?
It bothers me. Remember, perhaps the politician who has spoken more about debt than anybody else. I started talking about this debt that is mounting from way back as 2015. But people thought it was a joke. But now you can see everybody is now talking of exactly the same thing that I was talking about. So, my answer, does it bother me? Yes, it does. And it does not bother me today. It started bothering me much earlier. So we have to find a strategy eventually of moderating the impact of that debt on our society. And to moderate the impact means rescheduling, renegotiating those debts so that the burden can be minimized on the taxpayer. You see, earlier when you are talking about it and talk about the debt, everybody thinks ni yule jamaa mkubwa ndio analipa hiyo deni. What they don't know is that it is the revenue, VAT, hapo. If the debt was low and the economy was growing, maybe VAT would be 14%. Now it is 16%. Don't be surprised if it goes to 18% on basic commodities. So we must, and through you, we must help the people to understand that there is a correlation between their basic livelihood and the cost of their food and the public debt. People kept on thinking it's remote. It's not part of us, it's huko. But it should be known that for the government to raise money quickly, it has got to increase taxes on petroleum products.
Yes, and petrol again goes higher.
And that's the multiplier effect, which feeds into the cost of your food on the table.
So now once Wanjiku knows that, yes, it has an impact, what are they supposed to do?
Now, Wanjiku has got to realize that we need leaders who will seriously address this matter. Because Wanjiko is also intelligent. Okay? And we must give Wanjiko the facts. Once Wanjiko has the facts with her, she will make an intelligent decision. The problem is that we have been hiding the facts from Wanjiko. There's been a conspiracy of politicians. Don't release the statistics. There's been a conspiracy in the media houses. Forget about the detail about debt. Go and talk about the simplistic thing. Who is popular, Mr. X or Mr. Y? The conspiracy to hide the issues away from Wanjiko is what we should get rid of, so that Wanjiko can know Musalia Mudavadi for what he is, rather than putting me in a bow tie and making Wanjiko believe that the guy with the bow tie is the perfect guy.
So what I would want to know is, are political parties in Kenya youth friendly?
I think so. I think they are.
And why would you say that?
I would say so because, first of all, I see them embracing a lot in terms of technology now. And you can see the younger people are being involved more and more in the decision-making process in political parties. They are influencing more the policies of the day. I, for instance, if I were to talk about ANC, the party leadership that I have is way much younger than I am. You know, the people I work with. Very few are within my age bracket. The majority are younger.
That could be something towards the right direction, but today if I was to run for a seat, let's say I want to be an MP, there's an amount of money I have to pay to a party, right?
Yes.
Is that financially, are we being friendly to the youth? Because
you see, the youth must also learn to contribute to the institutions that they are joining. Let us not send a message to the youth that theirs is a free ride.
Yes.
It would be wrong. As much as you are young and whatever, but when you go to the shop, do you think that shopkeeper will give you the milk and the bread because you are young for free? No. They will tell you you have to pay for it, because that is how jobs are created. That is how you expand, and that's how you build institutions and create a participatory process. So if there was an affirmative action, yes, you can have some affirmative action in different ways. Perhaps you can reduce part of what they have to pay and as membership fee or something like that. But in reality, I don't think we should give them the impression that it's for free. I was a member of KANU. I became even a life member. I had to pay the fees. Then, of course, now I'm in ANC. You pay the membership fee.
yes,
Otherwise, how is that party being funded? Watu wasifikiri kwamba kuna mthamini, there's a sponsor huko nje kila kitu. Hapana. If you're a member of the party,
you have to pay.
Be part of it.
That's true.
11 years on, do you feel we've done well, or have politicians failed us?
I think politicians have failed us. The politicians have failed us. Probably we failed ourselves, because we also have to challenge ourselves as the agents. We say we the people in the Constitution. We say we are the ones who donate the authority to politicians. We are the ones who elect the politicians. So 2-3 cycles after within the 2010 implementation of the 2010 Constitution, we say we have Article 10 that talks about inclusivity, those very poetic, biblical, and Quranic and religious, aphoristic sounding words that we attach ourselves to. Under the Bill of Rights, we talk about non-discrimination. We talk about dignity. But when you get to the ballot box, you still just vote for your language and village. You see, so even us as Wananchi, we have to ask ourselves, the guy I say represents me at the county level or at the national legislature or executive, both county and national. Why did I make that choice? We really have to question ourselves. Why did I vote for that man or that woman? Is it because of the principles and values that they stood with and advocated? Or is it because of the narrow parochial path of language and village, which if we closely examine the patterns of voting, 2013 and then 2017. And even now, when you look at our politics, it's still around ethnic tribes, and there's no problem with that. But I think even if that is a primary focus, we should be able, or by now we should have been able to mature, and especially when you think of Kenya, the state of Kenya, being crafted within the imagination of what used to be called the nation states, from Europe. The nation state, the nation of France is for the French, as it was. England is for the English. Scotland is for the Scots, you see. So Kenya, you come and the Mzungus come and carve out this plot of land for their development, and there are all these African people living there. They don't care which nations they come. So we have this, and it's unique because the foundation of the state, as they imagined, was nationalization. So now we are caught up in this fight of trying to nationalize. So which nation takes for, this state? But again, because we know that is a challenge, I think we can come up with the solutions, you see. But if we refuse and think that it can only be nationalized, meaning it's only one or two or certain nations that can play within this state, then we are lost. And that's why we are where we are. Yeah. And I think the challenge is for us voters, for Kenyans, the keepers of sovereignty, to go beyond that narrow path of village and language. Because if it's poverty, it attends to all of us equally.
Cuts across.
Exactly.
And for us to maybe get there, part of the institution that's supposed to help us get there also is the judiciary. Mm-hmm. And of course, recently we had what they called a constitutional moment when the judiciary said the BBI is unconstitutional. And of course, with that, there's a lot of questions going on, mm-hmm. because before that happens, there have been so many other things that have been declared unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. The president appointed parastatal heads in 2018. Mm-hmm. Just the other day, it's unconstitutional. Mm-hmm. The president, the BBI unconstitutional. Yes. The CASs,
yeah.
Kenya Meat Commission.
Exactly.
But still, nothing has happened. Fine, the High Court will come and say it's unconstitutional, but mm-hmm. it ends at that.
Yes.
So what are we doing to our constitution? And what is it that is the fight between the executive and the judiciary?
As I was saying, it's a sorry state of affairs because, and the challenge that retired Chief Justice David Maraga gave us the other day,
yes.
that if we continue like this, we'll end up being, what are called banana republics, basically failed states, because when we cannot live within the word that we ourselves, I make an argument with you, but when I turn around, or when I'm doing it, I know I'm actually conning you. I'm not going to be. So what sort of society are we creating? Why should I follow the law if the government or the president is not following the law? Honestly. And we are getting to that level, and we'll get to that level where people now will start questioning why the Constitution. And for that matter, sometimes people think, I read and hear people saying, oh, the Constitution has failed in this. The Constitution is nothing, The Constitution is paper and words. The Constitution is you and your actions, So those words cannot animate themselves. It's your actions that animate that Constitution. It's like the Bible or Quran. If you leave it on the table, you don't read it, and it's just a piece of paper. It's just another book. So is the Constitution. So I feel sometimes when people say the Constitution has failed in this way, it's like they are transferring their agency to that piece of paper or book. It is us to. So when we fail to agree, and as I was saying, coming back to that issue of when we are a society that is trying, and a nation, or we're actually in the process of trying to build a nation, because we come from all these smaller nations, but we are trying to build this super nation called Kenya. We're still in that process. We still don't have a nation called Kenya per se. We are in a nation building process. So we have to ask ourselves, because nation A, nation B, nation C, they all come from different and have their different cultures, different ways of doing things, different laws, different religions. So how do we create something that sort of fits us all? And that's where the Constitution comes in.
So has the president failed?
In regard to the issues that have been presented or as challenges to him within the law and the Constitution, and have been, the courts have found it to be so, yes. And for that matter, some of these issues, in fact, ended up in court. Not that anyone or people were silent about them. Some of us and many other commentators would caution and say, we think this is the wrong path. This is not within constitutional faithfulness. But the government or the president still pressed on, you see. So in that regard, yes, and the courts confirm this within the parameters of, because if I tell you, as I'm saying right now, it's my opinion, you see. Somebody makes commentary in a newspaper or on a TV screen, again, that's the opinion. But we have said that our equalizer is the law. And we have put down the law and a process of determining scientifically, forensically, that when Sarah says or does this, and somebody else thinks it's wrong. So how do we determine who is right? We go to this umpire to apply the law. That's the judiciary. And that's a system we've said we are going to use to scientifically and, as I said, forensically determine for us what is the right path.
Okay. And of course, as someone who comes from Western Kenya, something that's a thorn to the people of Western Kenya, which if I don't ask, they will judge me, is sugar.
Yes.
Why have we killed our own?
I don't think we have killed the industries out there. What we've had is an issue of, it's a governance issue. So when you look at the private millers, they're making profits. West Kenya, they're making profits. Butali, they're making profits. Why is it that Nzoia Mumias are not? Miwani, Mohoroni, Soni are not? Because it's an attitude that we've had, that, mali ya umma, ni mali ya kuuma. And when we take money to these factories, and I know since President Uhuru Kenyatta took over the leadership of this country,
We have been with him to all these factories, pumping in billions. But somehow the money goes to the factories, but does not reach the farmers. Farmers are still not paid. Employees go for months without payment. So that's why the president formed a task force to look at what ails the sugar industry in this country. And this was done in Kakamega during Mashujaa Day 2018. A task force formed, co-chaired by Governor Oparanya and CS Agriculture. That task force had a very wide consultative process of engaging all stakeholders, and we were able to come up with recommendations, some of which included leasing of these factories to the private sector.
Yes.
And when you hear of people like Devki getting interested in leasing, it is in line with the recommendations that were made by the task force. So all I want to urge our politicians to do is to allow that task force to deliver, to avoid politicizing investment matters. Because investors don't like, noise.
In line
Politicians with an election coming,
yeah.
they feel like, they need to make some necessary noise to seem to be championing the cause of farmers. But Waswahili wanasema kelele ya chura haizui ng'ombe kunywa maji, lakini kelele ya wanasiasa inazuia wawekezaji kuweka pesa zao. But no one would want to take his money where the house is burning, people are fighting, you are not sure if you are going to recover your investments. And where you can't get a return on your investment, why would you bother putting the 5 billion in an area like that? So what we need, and this I want to ask all leaders, both in Western, Nyanza, and the rest of the country, we need to create a conducive environment for investors to come in. There's no other way of reviving this sugar sector. The government can no longer continue pumping money into factories that are not recovering. The answer is to bring the private sector on board, so that these companies can start making profits like the other private sector companies.
They keep saying, yes, even with investors wanting to come in, the issue of kickbacks is what is causing them to run away.
Corruption. And
worse still, that means more young people do not have jobs.
That is correct.
So what do we do to deal with this whole issue?
What we should do is to depoliticize the process. And once we do that, the people in Western, the poverty levels are very worrying. What the people want, they're hardworking people. They want to deliver their can to a factory that will pay them. They want the factory to work so that their children get jobs. In fact, if that was done, you will not hear all this noise. But like you say, there are vested interests in all this. There are cartels that are actually trying to prevent reforms in the sugar sector, in the tea sector, in the coffee subsector. You can see resistance everywhere. In all the reforms that the government is bringing, there are cases and cases trying to block the reforms. Because cartels would like the status quo to remain. This does not exclude the sugar sector. And that is why we need to think outside the box and see how to manage this process.
I had an interview with the minority leader just a few days ago, and he said that most of the young MPs are not taking time to learn. So as you respond to that, I would also want to know...
Sorry, you said most of the young people?
Are not willing to learn. Like, you join parliament and there's nothing major you're contributing, you're not taking time to learn how parliament runs. So maybe that's one of the challenges. As you address that also, there's a feeling that most young politicians have failed the young people of this country. Is that true?
I'll start with whether the young people have failed the people of this country. And I'll say, I would say most of the time, we have not lived to the expectations of the young people. That's a fact. But why is that so? Most of us are fresh in politics. As I said, I have never been a member of parliament before. When it comes to leadership in the house, is that to find yourself, you the best you hold is a membership role in the National Assembly. So what does that mean? For example, Kanini Kega is my chairperson of Budget and Appropriation Committee. If I'd evaluate my academic qualifications, then I would say, if we were looking at papers, I would be more qualified than he is. But Parliament really respects like pecking order. So the fact that he's more experienced in terms of parliamentary business than I am, then he gets to be the chair of the Budget and Appropriation Committee. So if I go to lobby for a particular project, who will the cabinet secretary listen to more? Is the chair of budget who he will come and face to get approval for their budget? Or is it a member of parliament from Molo who is a member of that committee?
So you're saying they do not listen to the young MPs?
I don't say they listen. I said naturally. Most of the resources are actually subdivided at the committee level. And most of those projects that will need being lobbied for will naturally and will most of the time go to members of parliament that, let me try to give a different example. You find Amos Kemunya, for example, leader of majority, former minister for finance. He wants a road tarmacked. He's leader of majority. If he's leader of majority, he can frustrate any business, including any business that will affect Ministry of Roads. So when it is the two of us and resources are limited, these needs of the people are competitive. So there are a list of 1,000 projects that are needed in the country. And Kimani Kuri is pushing for 2, and Amos Kimunya is pushing for 2, and the Rambo John Badi is pushing for 2. You are the minister. Where will you allocate resources first?
If I was in that position, I think the needs, where the need is.
Unfortunately, politics is not, resources are not awarded in this country as per the needs. You can find, even with the same, okay, fine. So even the same needs, these 3 constituencies need the exact same needs. You'll find naturally that is the leader of majority who will get preference.
Due to the position and experience.
Because of the position they hold, and because also, when these people come to parliament, they will expect them to influence things, will skew things to their benefit. If you go to the budget committee and the chair of budget does not want the project of that government proposal to pass through, he will frustrate you.
Yeah.
I will frustrate you, but then if I'm frustrating you 10 times, then Kanikego will have frustrated you 50 times.
Yeah, that's true. Okay.
And so also in terms of the learning, I would say it has taken some time to learn, but also I would also say that young people are judged a lot more harshly than the older people.
I think you will be judged more because you're the people that we can relate with. I mean, I may not relate with the Honorable Kimunya because he's been there for years, but I'll expect that if I went to campus with you, then I think you're more young to make things move. And also in line with that, we've had an issue of students sleeping hungry just the other day because help has not been dispersed. And I think you as young MPs are the people who should be pushing for such. Do we have to get to a point where now Kenyans on Twitter are the ones raising issues for MPs too?
Let me tell you, and I will say this without fear of contradiction. When the issue of help came, during that time, we had a meeting with the Cabinet Secretary for Treasury at the Boma, because that time we were discussing the budget policy statement. And I did tell the CES for Treasury that if there are any priority that should have in terms of release of money to institutions, whether revenue is doing badly or is doing well or not, should be released these funds to comrades. And the CS promised that within a week funds would be released. I followed up the same week we had Parliament. And when you're contributing towards, when I was making my contribution on the same matter, I reiterated and said, if you really care about the next generation, then you must release these funds. And those funds were released. So I dare say that when it comes to fighting for the rights, for the affairs of young people in this country, I have been on the lead.
I mean, you have tried, like for that one in particular, it was a plus. So before we go to BBI, let me just ask one more question about Parliament. What happened? I mean, it's a question that the citizens keep asking. We have committees in Parliament. Let's say something like COVID millionaire happens, NYS scandal happened, and you're part of that committee, if I remember. But then again, we don't see any prosecutions at the end of the day. Where is the gap and why?
You know, I want to ask Kenyans to also look at things positively. You know, when Parliament has no machinery to start with, unless you get information from whistleblowers, Parliament as an institution has no machinery to get to know what is happening in the ministries. We use other agencies. We use the Office of the Auditor General, we use EACC, we use DCI, we use such institutions. That's why they report to Parliament. Now, Kenyans should be happy that things which used to take years for us even to get to know they happen, like NYS. NYS actually was largely brought by the opposition, largely by Raila Odinga, because of one, whistleblowing, two, we also took our time to understand this NYS, which Jubilee was hyping too much and allocating too excess budget to. I would tell you that the first scandal of NYS was created by government itself. And I must blame the cabinet. And I must even take it to the doorstep of the president. The president, in his zeal and excitement to create a system where Kibera would be made clean, Mathare clean, and Kisumu, Kondele, etc., decided in one single year, and it was not even main budget, the president decided that through a supplementary budget, billions of shillings would be channeled to NYS. We tried to reject that in the budget committee, and we were told, and you know our numbers were depressed. We had fewer numbers compared to Jubilee. We were told this is a government agenda and you cannot sabotage it. And we protested that NYS is being given too much money. They had so much money that they didn't know what to do with. The net result is, if you have too much money at your disposal, you can't fail to find use for it, and it will be private use. So that is what we ended up by giving fraudsters NYS money. Now, if you come even to KEMSA, people got to know that things were not going right in KEMSA. Probably, if it was the other times in this country, we would have known about KEMSA in 2026. That money has been stolen. The theft would still be going on as we speak. I want to imagine that theft has stopped. But now that these things can come out, now that DCI can be on it, now that EACC can investigate quickly enough, even if they are not going to prosecute etc. But the fact that you know someone is watching is deterrent enough. And to me, I say Kenyans should look at it positively, that things are not as it used to be. We used to get these scandals, but after how long? Even Goldenberg, how long did it take? So I want to say that is, but as a parliament, we are still doing our oversight role. Parliament should be relying on reports by Auditor General. And even where, like Park, where you think something is not going right, it's required that you first ask the Auditor General to go and audit and bring a report. So we may not be as robust, or we may not be bringing out sensational stories and frauds and theft, but we are still active as Parliament. And I want to say, you know, people think there's more theft now than it used to be. Yeah. And I think differently. I think it is easy now to know when people are stealing than it used to be.
But if you know we're stealing and you do nothing.
No, there's something being done, you know. That is, again, something that I think we are also being unfair to ourselves. Something is being done. For the first time, you can see senior officials in this country being taken to court. It used not to happen. People used to steal, but what you see, some procurement officer in some organization being taken to court and charged. And I will tell you, most of them were winning or being let free or winning there. Because if you take a small person there, he has evidence to prove That is not the one who was responsible. Now, for the first time, you have seen a minister, cabinet secretary for finance is in court because of corruption. For the first time, we saw many governors being taken, past and present, being taken to court. It used not to happen. For the first time, an MP has been jailed for years that were unimaginable. Okay? But still, where there's a problem is, I see EACC now has woken up. In fact, DCI, involving DCI has woken up EACC. They have been sleeping a bit. They were woken up. And now, the reports I get is that most of the cases that are taken to court via EACC are watertight. Clearly, for you to win a case that has been investigated by EACC is not very easy. DCI, yes, has also been doing some work. The problem has been also our judicial system. The courts, I am told they are lacking personnel. So here the president needs to help the court. He needs to make a decision on the 41 judges.
I mean,
but
it's almost 2 years now.
yeah, he needs to make that decision and handle it. That's why in our proposal as ODM, we are the only party that made a proposal on how to go about this appointment of judges. No any other, including the Tanga who are making noise all over the place. They never presented their views to BBI to suggest how to get out of this. I led ODM into suggesting solutions. How, if the president fails, just like the bills, if the president fails to assent within a period of time, it becomes law automatically. So we had proposed that. Unfortunately, it has not been captured well. The other thing that BBI is proposing speedy conclusion of corruption cases within 1 year. This is something that is progressive and positive. So that this case, look, there are people who are charged in court and are still running for offices. Yes. Look how ridiculous things can be. That someone has been impeached in Kiambu and has the audacity to send application to run for Nairobi gubernatorial seat. You will find Sonko running going to, if the case is not concluded, running to Machakos. I will not mention no, but you know, one of the governors who is in court is coming to run against me in Omabe. Really, surely. We must have these cases concluded. If you are innocent, then you become free and you can run. But if you have not been cleared, in terms of morality, fairness to the people you want to work for, how can you run for a seat when you have all these cases around you?
The leadership of women in our parliament, and how would you rate it? Especially having been in leadership for the last 8 years now, in both houses.
Yeah. In terms of numbers, I think we did better, and I'm happy now that Kavindu was elected to the Senate. The Senate is now 2/3 compliant, and that's a big deal. That's a very, very big deal. For the National Assembly, I think our numbers are higher. But I'm a bit unhappy that we haven't been able to put up a united front on women's issues. We haven't, as we did in the last parliament, where we many times rose above our partisan politics to, champion causes together. I'm afraid that this parliament, we have failed on that.
And what is the reason?
I can't place my finger on it, but people seem to hold very strong positions of, I am Kieleweke, I am Tangatanga, and they think, maybe because of that they can't let go of those positions. So hapo tumeanguka.
Is there any particular achievement you'd say as female leaders you've attained for the betterment of the bigger population, especially the women?
Yeah. In the last parliament we did, because in the last parliament, even the effort with which we pushed the 2/3 gender rule, even though we didn't get it, I think we did very well. We did the Marriage Act, we did the Matrimonial Properties Act. The Marriage Act, is what was able to say define marriages so that people are not just men have to decide what type of marriage they want to get into, and to the advantage of women. Matrimonial properties was also very important because people were, you get into a marriage, you invest, time, you take care of your family, you do everything. Then you're thrown out and you're told you are a housewife. The person who was earning was the man, and therefore you own nothing. Yet it is the comfort you provided and the work you did at home that made that possible. So matrimonial property said anything we acquire when we are together is 50-50. The second thing that was important in the matrimonial properties was if you marry a second wife, because polygamy now in the Marriage Act had been allowed. But if you marry a second wife, does she inherit all the property we have been working for the whole time? Now, matrimonial properties came and said, no, apana. 2007 to 2012, it was Gladys and Omar. Bas. Catherine comes in 2013. Now from 2013 to 2020, we now, anything acquired in that period, now you can talk about, but not what was acquired in your absence. So those were some of the things that as women leaders we managed to lobby together to get to. In this parliament, I think one of our bigger achievements has been what we managed to do within the BBI process, even though we were very divided. My disappointment is that even for a constitutional moment such as the BBI, we were unable as women, all women leaders, to come together to front a common position. Some said, I don't support BBI, therefore I'll not talk. I'll not even go there. I'll not even do what. Others said, okay, as we are BBI people, we will go. So you find, even up to now, women are not agreeing on whether their gains have been fully captured within the BBI. And that's because we didn't have that common position. But from where I sit, the women, especially those who are involved in the BBI process, have managed to put in significant gains for the women of Kenya.
All right.
Ourselves, we are irredeemably corrupt at individual level. By the way, you know, people just keep saying these leaders are corrupt. You get what you deserve in terms of leaders, because our population, people are corrupt at their own individual levels. The only thing they lack is opportunity to steal. If you just give them the opportunity, we must overhaul our moral fabric. People must be responsible and accountable, because they just say, our leaders are corrupt. Just give somebody responsibility. Tell them you are the leader of this group. I want to give you some money. Organize yourselves. They start grouping on how to steal that money. So really, it is a conversation we must have about our moral fabric as a country. Are we really a truthful and corruption-free population? And therefore we'll get non-corrupt leaders. And then we demand, we say, okay, our leaders, what have you, but at the end of the day, the leaders are like, the ATMs for the society. Me, my child is sick, I'm going to the politician. My child has not gone to school, I'm going to the politician. I want to have a wedding, I'm going to the politician. I have a funeral, I'm going to the politician. At the end of the day, it's some of these things that we must have as a conversation and say, what can our leaders do? What can't they do? What is my responsibility? As much as I have a right, what is my responsibility? As a healthcare worker, I have rights, but what is my responsibility? As a policeman, I have a right, but what is my responsibility? It's a conversation we must have together.
So